Um, there's a pretty cool one where Maryland produced a pretty good player back in the day,
Oh
or so
yeah,
we
it's a
thought,
transition, I feel.
or so we thought. There's this household name most people know these days, and his name is Freddy Adu. And his household for the wrong reasons today, but in the past, he was household for being one of the best and brightest young players to ever come out of the United States. A 14-year-old prodigy who drew comparisons to some of the greatest players in history, including earning the nickname the American Pele and even starring in a soda commercial with the Brazilian legend back at the time. Destined for greatness by all who spoke about him, what exactly went wrong for the young American starlet? Well, we should probably take a look at how we got here in the first place. Flashing back all the way to 2002, at age 12, Freddy Adu was already attracting European interest. His ability in youth tournaments in Italy saw him gain offers from the likes of Inter Milan, with their Secretary of Youth Soccer stating that he was the first player they have ever seen with the potential as a pro player in European soccer. Big praise for a young player. He and his family ended up turning down the offer to return to America to continue schooling because, as I remind you, he was 12. A year before he turned into MLS's youngest ever player, he led Maryland High School to a state soccer championship, much like how Comac High School was led by a short but skillful goalkeeper to their first ever solo championship in 2014. However, unlike our friend Freddie Adu, unlike let me rephrase that. Unlike our unlikely hero at Comac, me, this tabbed Adu to be ready for the pro game while I was not. Why? I have no idea. But that's for another story. Outside of his time in the Maryland high school system, he also would play pickup games against former pros on summer break. And his ability at 14 years old to handle them technically, physically, and mentally stood out to scouts all over the country. He led his ODP U14 side to a championship overseas against massive clubs like Lazio and Juve, racking up enough goals to earn top scorer and MVP in this tournament. At age 13, he was playing for the US U17s, scoring 22 goals and then 29 the year after. Insane numbers at the age group he was playing. Clubs took notice, and DC United said that they needed to work a way to get him in. Now, as we know, MLS would do dang near anything to help bring more notoriety to a league. See Andrew Shue in 1996. The idea that the next Pele could be playing at MLS at just 14 years old was bound to turn some heads and bring some eyes to the game. However, Freddie Adu was based in Maryland, and it was unlikely that if he would want to play anywhere, it was unlikely that he would want to play anywhere else except his hometown. His mother was quoted as saying that MLS was the best place for him to develop as he was still so young. So Daddy Don got to work figuring out the logistics of a trade to get him on to DC United. Firstly, they had to figure out how to get DC United to DC legally through their own very fun roster rules. At the time, they were still not ready to make wholesale changes to their rule system just yet, and Beckham would not arrive for another 4 years. But luckily, Project 40 still existed. He was quickly listed as a Project 40 player to make him eligible for the 2004 MLS draft. The only problem? The Dallas Burn had the first pick that year, and it was pretty clear that if the hype was going to pay off for this kid, he had to be the number one pick. If DC United got him at 8, it would be less cool. MLS engineered a deal that gave DC United the first overall pick, and in exchange, Dallas got what was called an allocation, and a major allocation at that. At this point, the allocation order was not officially set up to best of my research, but instead they had these allocations, which were just ordered picks to allow clubs to submit to sign a player from MLS. So, for example, if there was an expansion team that came in, they were given 3 allocations. So, player comes into MLS, MLS signs him to say, okay, who wants him? And then they all put in basically a ticket to say, I want him, I want him, I want him. And the tickets are ordered based off of where you stood back in, the last season. So it's like the allocation order, but it wasn't officially an order yet, right? Expansion teams, to continue and finish the example, expansion teams were given 3 of them, but one was able to just jump the list, basically saying, hey, if you wanted to sign this player coming in, use your ticket, and everybody else has to sit behind. Yep, MLS is fun, we know. This allocation list for players that were eligible for these allocations included super draft picks, special discovery players aged 28 or younger, and players entering the league between a certain undisclosed period of the calendar, among others. Because why not? A major allocation was given to Dallas to get the number 1 pick, according to the Burn spokesman Chris Ward, they get the pick, we get a major player allocation. And that was all that was spoken about. They kept it under wraps really well because DC United technically signed him 2 months before the draft, but there was nothing coming out saying, oh, he got signed. So they had to make it official with the announcement at the podium of the draft, but nobody knew about it. So pretty good raps on MLS's side there to hide it and make it climactic and really, really draw interest to it. Jumping forward now to January 16th, 2004, the journey of Freddy Adu officially begins as he's drafted to DC United with the first overall pick. Adu had the hype, and it caused him to be drafted ahead of other players like Chad Marshall, Clarence Goodson, Clint Dempsey, and our Lord and Savior, Michael Bradley, who all went on to have relatively successful pro careers, one could say. In the world of MLS, he was both a rookie and the highest paid player in the league at age 14. $750,000 a year after Nike and MLS deals were put together. As you can imagine, this caused some unhealthy friction in our locker rooms, according to the U20 head coach, Thomas Rongen. And Adu accepted it. He had an interview back, right towards the end of his career saying, I was 14 and I understood people weren't going to like that I was making all this money. But at the same time, I also felt like it wasn't fair that I was the one who had to pick up the cones or I was the one who had to fill the water. Looking back at it, obviously, I was immature about it, but I was 14. Who could expect me not to be? Jump forward to the season. It's April 3rd, 2004. Freddy Adu is not in the starting lineup against San Jose for DC United's opening game, but he does join the game as a second half substitute, making him the single youngest person to ever participate in a pro sporting event in the country. Not just soccer, but every single pro sporting event ever. History was made, and we were just getting started. 2 weeks later, Freddy Adu is used as a sub once again against DC's biggest rivals, the New York, New Jersey Metro Stars. And just 20 minutes after getting onto the pitch, the ball worked down the left-hand side of the field, is crossed into the box. It nutmegs the first defender after rolling about 15 yards, which was the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen. Rolls past the second defender, who was running with a player running to the near post, and falls to the feet of Freddy Adu. He explodes fastest, beats the Metro defender, and taps it in past Johnny Walker. Yes, I know what you're thinking. This is yet another time the Metro are in the history book for the wrong reason. We love a theme. It is important to note, though, Metro did not lose this game. They won 3-2 because we are massive. But anyways, Freddy Adu would go on and finish his year with 5 goals, 3 assists, and 30 appearances. He was turned starter for a short time until Christian Gomez entered midseason and dropped him back to the bench. He was often used as a sub in their MLS Cup run that year, where he made 3 appearances and assisted on a goal in the playoffs. The league was buzzing with this development that we had one of the brightest stars in the game playing in our league, and MLS at the time was not doing so hot. They needed a PR spark to get people reinterested in the league. And Adu was just that spark. Fans, owners, everybody in between wanted to see more and more and more of Freddy Adu. But Peter Novak was convinced in his ways that Adu, at just 14 or 15 years old, needed to be eased into the professional game. Adu was mostly used as a sub in early years and was frustrated by this fact. He spoke out to the media about how his lack of time likely cost him a spot on the U.S. men's national team 06 World Cup roster, and he earned himself a 1-game suspension. Despite his lack of starts, he went on trial with Manchester United at the request of Sir Alex Ferguson to see him train in person. Ferguson is noted as saying he's a talented young boy and he will go back to America to continue to develop. At age 18, we'll see what we can do. Returning back to DC United, he continued to clash with Peter Novak until they entered 2007 when he was traded to Real Salt Lake, along with the second best goalkeeper in MLS history, Nick Rimando, in exchange for one major allocation, Jay Nolly, and future considerations, which turned out to be a sell-on percentage for whatever money was paid for Adu in an out-of-league transfer. In RSL, things were not as ideal as he would have liked. Played 11 times for the club, scoring only once, and never winning a game, with 6 draws and 5 losses. Then he was sent out to the U20 World Cup, where he would experience much greater success, including a hat-trick versus Poland in a 6-1 victory, and both assists to Josie Altidore in a 2-1 win over Brazil, which featured the likes of Marcelo, Renato Augusto, Luis Adriano, Willian, and Alexander Pato. Pretty crazy list of players there, I would have to say. He captained the team to a quarterfinal appearance, eventually losing to Austria in extra time, while also beating Uruguay in extra time. Make it a little light in here. There we go. This performance at the U20 World Cup raised his profile immensely, such that Portuguese giants Benfica took notice. Later that year, he secured a $2 million move to Portugal, a record move for the time at the league, and from there, things started going very south very quickly. It's important to note before we get into this string of really bad moves that not all of this is Adu's fault. When he joined Benfica, they started going through a really bad period in terms of leadership, and he played under 3 managers in 6 months. He couldn't really break into the team because he kept trying to figure out what this coach wanted from him, what that coach wanted from him. By the time they got to the third coach, he just gave up on Freddy Adu. He made just 21 appearances for Benfica and began a loan army spell that Chelsea would rival. His first stop saw him at France with AS Monaco, where he made 10 appearances for the club with 0 goal contributions. Monaco declined the purchase option of the deal, and he ended up returning back to Benfica a year later. He stayed in Portugal to go to CFOS Belenenses in the 3rd division at the time. He played just 109 minutes before returning 2 months later after having his loan cut short due to injury. Then it was directly back to Greece to play for Arias Saloniki. Things got a bit better here, 2 goals, 2 assists in 12 appearances, but they didn't pick up the option. So he goes back to Benfica and rejoins 2nd division side Çaykur Rizespor in Turkey. If anybody's keeping count, that is 4 countries in 4 years. Another spell in which he seemed to get a little bit better. 4 goals, 2 assists in 12 appearances, and also earned a Man of the Match award in the game where he got both of the assists. At the end of the loan, he was released from Benfica and he signed a new deal with MLS side Philadelphia Union on a free transfer and a designated player deal. 5 countries, 5 years. You can imagine how difficult it would be to acclimate to playing football at a pro level, still only a teenager, if not a little bit into his 20s. Crazy. It was here in Philly that he finally settled into football life, still only 22 years of age. He made 41 appearances over 2 years with 10 goals and 3 assists for a relatively poor Philly team. We know that. He told ESPN that year in an interview, by the age of 25, I want to be playing in England or Spain. Not just playing, but to be a regular starter. Many people don't know this, but that was the goal all along. I wanted to start in France or Portugal before going to England or Spain. That's why I picked Benfica. That's why I picked Monaco on my first loan move. In 2012, Peter Novak was fired and John Hackworth came in to take over. He was not impressed with Freddy Adu for the salary that he was making and immediately started trying to force Adu out of the club. Eventually, they found a deal to send him to Brazilian side Bahia, with Brazilian legend Kleberson going the other way. Bahia was almost a worse off mess than Benfica was. Adu once again played under 3 managers in 1 season and was released, just making 4 appearances that year. This began a series of trials where Adu failed to make himself stick. He trained with Blackpool, Stabæk, managed by our favorite bald manager, Bob Bradley, and AZ in Netherlands, failing each time to earn a deal. A few months later, in July 2014, he finally signed with Serbian club FK Jagodina on a 1.5-year deal. He made his debut on September 24th, 2014, as a sub in the Serbian Cup. This was his only appearance for the club, and he was released shortly thereafter. He moves to KUPS in Finland in March of 2015, playing 6 times for the club, and then chose to terminate his contract just 3 months into the gig, opting to make a return back to the United States. Now, on what seems to be his billionth club, NASL's Tampa Bay Rowdies signed him off the back of his time in Finland, and he was able to gain, yet again, a little bit of stability in America, spending 18 months with the side without really being able to return to top form. He made 13 appearances and did not have his contract renewed. However, he was still only 25 at this point and did not have his hopes or dreams shattered. For over a year, he went on to train with other clubs, including NASL's Portland Timbers and a Polish club that I don't really want to try and pronounce, but we're going to go for it. Sandekja Naui Sox. Got it. No notes. The latter resulted in a comment from the manager of that Polish team saying the trial was a joke. Neither of these trials turned into anything concrete. We flash forward to 2018, where Freddy Adu signs with the Las Vegas Lights. He plays for another 8 months alongside former MLS names like Eric Avila and Daigo Kobayashi. Yet again, he failed to make an impact with only 1 goal, 1 assist in 15 appearances and was released at the end of the season. This was followed by a 2-year break from football, where he found himself coaching youth soccer in Maryland instead of trialing with any club who would take him. It all started to hit him on a visit back to RFK in 2018, where he was quoted as saying, "I can't believe it. Time just flies. I was 14 when I first started here. Now I'm 28. It's just weird. It went so fast. I understand now what everybody meant when they said don't take it for granted. You blink and wake up, and it's like, oh man, it goes by quick. Make the best of it when you can." Over the 2 years he was off, he never did abandon his dream of playing, however. And in October of 2020, he found himself in Sweden with a 3rd division side called Österlen FF. At age 31, he was about to get the biggest reality check of his tumultuous career. The question had always been the same, no matter where he was going to go. At 31, with a 2-year break from pro football and not doing anything except coaching and maybe running a little bit, does he still have it? Well, I think we all remember how this goes. But if you don't, when Adu signed his contract in October 2020, it took him a few months to get over there and get situated. So he didn't start training until the Christmas holiday. Or rather, after the Christmas holiday. He got there after New Year's. Abruptly, 1 month later, in February 2021, the club announced that it was terminating Adu's contract with immediate effect. There were mixed rumors about exactly what happened, with Adu citing internal conflict at the club. He gave an interview saying that there's some kind of power struggle going on where the coach said that I was released without his approval. I just want to play football and get in shape, then to play matches. This contract isn't broken until both parties agree. Our friend, the club coach, whose name I don't have, comes back with a clearer picture stating, he got the chance to show himself. We contracted him for 2 months before the new year, and he had a very long time to prepare and get in fair condition. He said he wanted to resume his career and get back on track. Then you would expect him to show his best side during the trial. He was totally untrained when he came here. His physical status was 0. We gave him a chance for a month to see and gave him half of a game in a training match where what he achieved was what we see in a Division 5 level. I can't have players in a 24-man squad working for everything and then one guy who is here because of his name. Division 1, or the 3rd division at that time, is not a simple series. It is tough, and you need to have mental strength to handle it. I do not see that he has the mental strength to come back or to help this club or team. Tough words from a tough coach, and here we are in 2023 with Adu not having officially retired, but at 33 years of age, looking like his playing days are behind him. This is a story of the brightest star burning out the hottest and the fastest. What was meant to be the next Pele, born in Ghana and raised in America, left questions for the rest of the world about American players. Europe at the time was a lofty goal for many American footballers, and Adu got to experience it at the youngest age possible. Many arguments can be had regarding the impact on Americans abroad. Did his failure to succeed stunt the growth of American talent? One more time. Did his failure to succeed stunt the train of American talent to Europe? Or did his career path actually entitle success and pave way for the other Americans to make the same jump, but is looked at as a failure based off of the lofty expectations? Freddy Adu agrees with the latter. In an interview in 2010, before returning to Philly, he claimed that he was on the right track. And he wasn't totally wrong. At 22 years old, he had already played in multiple European, North, and South American leagues, was the hero of a U20 World Cup, and was the most expensive transfer at one point in time. Did it all work out perfectly? Of course not. But the lofty expectations of the teenager's career should not overshadow that he was the first person really to break the barrier. He was the first person to get over the line and turn heads towards the production of talent in the land of football, basketball, and baseball. It was a move that showed that we had something special working here, and that you better keep an eye on us because we're about to blow up. We're about to be big. Almost 20 years on from his debut, transfer fees for American players in MLS, or players in MLS in general, make up the top 5 of total sums in the world, moving to top clubs in England, Spain, Belgium, Italy, Germany, and the Netherlands, just to name a few. As time continues to move, history will continue to look back and analyze Adu's groundbreaking move. And I believe that it will come to the reality that it drew the attention to this growing league and increasingly, let me rephrase it again. We're going to go one more time because I got to get these words right. It's going to look back and it's going to show that his move continued to draw attention on our growing league and helped players get overseas more than hurt. And that's up for debate. I'm here for it.